In the spring of 1995, a young woman drove to a motel in Corpus Christi to pick up paperwork, tax records, business documents, an errand that should have taken a sliver out of the afternoon and then disappeared. She never made it home. By evening, grief was moving faster than the official facts. Fans gathered outside her boutique on Leopard Street and pressed flowers against the glass. Radio hosts across Texas were trying to speak through callers who were already crying. Some of the people standing there were very young, with her voice already woven into the background of their lives. Selena Quintanilla was 23 years old. She had won a Grammy, filled the Houston Rodeo, and was finishing the English language album meant to carry her further. The ending is what people remember first. The larger truth had started years earlier, long before that motel room. Selena Quintanilla was born on April 16, 1971, in Lake Jackson, Texas. She was the youngest of 3 children born to Abraham and Marcela Quintanilla. Her brother, A.B., played bass. Her sister, Suzette, played drums. Their father had once performed in a Tejano group called Los Dinos. And when he realized how strong Selena's voice was, he began shaping the family around it. That family story is usually told with warmth, and some of that warmth is earned. It was a close unit. It was also a working unit. The restaurant they ran, Pappagallo, failed during a difficult financial stretch, and music stopped being a side pursuit. It became the plan. By the early 1980s, the family was performing as a professional act, traveling through South Texas and beyond, taking bookings wherever they could get them. This meant Selena grew up inside adult routines before she was old enough to name them that way. Long drives, late nights, sound checks, cash flow, venues that ranged from weddings to dance halls to clubs. Childhood was fitted around the work, not the other way around. She completed 8th grade in Corpus Christi, then finished high school through a correspondence program because a regular school schedule no longer matched the life she was living. It strips away the fantasy version of stardom. Before the awards and the arena crowds, there was a girl doing schoolwork between gigs while her family tried to keep itself afloat. No one found Selena in a neat cinematic way. She was built in public over years by repetition and discipline and a father who believed he saw the future early. He was right about the talent. He was also shaping the conditions around it, sometimes with the intensity of a father, sometimes with the force of a manager. Those 2 roles never stayed fully separate. They are part of what made the family band work, and part of what made Selena's rise so unusual. She was never entering a machine that already existed. She was growing inside one her family was building in real time. One of the most important truths in Selena's story is also one of the most misunderstood. English dominated her home life. Spanish was present in the culture around her, in the music, in the communities she moved through, but it was not the language she spoke most naturally as a child. Once the family committed to Tejano music, Selena had to meet the audience where they were. Spanish was central to the songs, and people could tell instantly whether a performer belonged in that space. Abraham began teaching her the material, and she learned fast under real pressure, in front of crowds on working nights, with very little room to hide uncertainty. What Selena gained went far beyond pronunciation. She learned how to carry the music with confidence, and audiences responded to that. Over time, the people who could have seen her as distant instead recognized something familiar in her. She reflected a bilingual Mexican-American experience that already existed in millions of homes and communities. She did not feel separate from that world. She felt like someone living inside it, with all the movement between language, identity, and expectation that her audience already understood. That helps explain why the connection ran so deep. Selena gave fans more than songs. She gave them someone who could hold glamour and familiarity at once, someone who moved between English and Spanish in a way that felt natural. Years later, the industry would package that as crossover. In her life, it had already taken shape long before that label arrived. That tension gave her performances charge. She sounded like someone reaching toward the language and claiming it in public. Fans living between identities understood that immediately. Selena did not feel polished into distance. She felt close, familiar, and real there. The pressure of those early years also sharpened her timing as a performer. She learned how to read a room, how to win over people who were not automatically there for her, how to keep control of a crowd without appearing to force it. By the time, executives and national media started paying closer attention. Selena had already spent years proving herself in rooms where nothing was guaranteed. By the time Selena signed with EMI Latin in 1989, she was 18 years old and had already been working for most of her life. That contract can look like a starting line from the outside, but her rise had been underway for years in South Texas. The difference in 1989 was that a bigger industry had finally begun to see what local audiences had known for a long time. The Tejano circuit was powerful inside its own world and almost invisible outside it. There were loyal audiences, radio stations, venues, awards, and stars. There was also a ceiling. A Tejano artist could become enormous within the genre and still remain unknown to much of the broader American music business. Selena's early career unfolded inside that contradiction. She had already become a force at the Tejano Music Awards as a teenager. In 1987, she won Female Entertainer of the Year. More awards followed, and with them came a growing sense that she stood above the crowded regional field. Her name was starting to feel inseparable from the genre itself. The EMI Latin deal turned regional dominance into a wider possibility. It gave Selena distribution, promotion, and a label structure large enough to imagine national expansion. What matters just as much is that the English language crossover was not an afterthought invented later to make her story more tragic. Her father had pushed for that possibility early. The move into the mainstream pop market was part of the plan while she was still alive and working toward it. That makes the years after 1989 easier to understand. Crossover was part of the direction, and Selena kept moving toward it while expanding the audience that had already built around her. Every album, every television appearance, every major booking pushed the same point into clearer view. Her music could travel farther than the industry expected. She was still very young while all this was happening, and that youth can blur the scale of the accomplishment. Selena had the stage confidence of someone older because she had already spent so many years on stage. The result was unusual. She seemed fresh and fully formed at the same time. In 1994, Selena won the Grammy for Best Mexican-American Album for Selena Live. It was the first time a female Tejano artist had won that category. That sentence can sound ceremonial now because people know what came after. At the time, it carried a different charge. It was proof that a performer once treated as regional had broken into a larger institutional frame. The same period brought Amor Prohibido, the album that became the defining statement of her Spanish-language career. By then, Selena was no longer building only within Texas. Her reach had expanded across Latin radio and into households far from the places where she first learned how to hold a crowd. The songs traveled because she did, and because her audience recognized itself in the way she moved through genre, image, and language. Then came the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo in February 1995. The attendance figure was 61,041. Numbers can flatten things when they are dropped carelessly, but that one deserves to stay. It was not hypothetical potential. It was an actual crowd, gathered while Selena was alive, responding in real time to what she had become. She drew more people than several major country stars who were sharing the same event calendar. The lane assigned to Tejano no longer fit the size of what she was doing. This is why the phrase "on the verge" only tells part of the truth. Selena was approaching something larger, yes, especially in the English language market, but she was also already enormous. The breakthrough was not still waiting somewhere out ahead of her. In key ways, it had begun. The industry just had not fully updated its language for it. She was not asking the world for permission anymore. She was giving it evidence. It is easy to freeze Selena at the microphone because performance was where her charisma was most visible. But by the mid-1990s, her ambitions had grown beyond records and concert dates. In 1994, she opened Selena, etc., boutique salons in Corpus Christi and San Antonio, and expanded her clothing line. She was 22. That was a serious expansion of her life and work. Physical stores require staff, inventory, management, payroll, scheduling, records, and trust. They also require time, which was already in short supply. Selena was recording, touring, promoting albums, making public appearances, and trying to build a retail brand closely tied to her image and design sense. Her career was growing beyond performance and into business. Success also changed how people approached her. The more visible she became, the more her time, image, and trust turned into assets others could benefit from. That pressure sat behind the glamour, expanding the stakes of each decision around her. Her public image at this stage had a rare balance. On stage, she could project glamour, control, and a kind of easy confidence that made very large venues feel intimate. Off-stage, people remembered someone accessible, funny, warm with fans, and deeply attached to her family. Plenty of stars try to manufacture that duality. Selena seemed to carry it naturally. She also kept showing up for community work. She participated in anti-drug education efforts, supported DARE, worked with the Coastal Bend AIDS Foundation, and recorded public service messages. Those choices reinforced the way many people already saw her. She was successful, but she did not present herself as removed from ordinary people or from the neighborhoods that had claimed her early. The boutiques also marked a turning point in the family business. The operation had grown beyond what the original structure could comfortably manage on its own. Expansion meant more employees, more managers, and more people with access to sensitive parts of Selena's professional life. The circle that had once stayed tight was beginning to widen. That widening would prove catastrophic. Yolanda Saldivar first entered Selena's world as a devoted admirer. She started the fan club, gained influence there, and moved further into the family's business as the boutiques expanded. In time, she was handling fan club operations as well as store management, which gave her control over records, money, paperwork, and other sensitive parts of Selena's growing business. At first, the arrangement seemed to work. Then the problems started to surface. By early 1995, the Quintanilla family had growing concerns about missing records tied to the boutiques and the fan club. The issue was immediate and practical. Important documents were not where they should have been, and Selena needed them, including materials connected to tax matters. What had started as internal concern was becoming a serious business problem inside a very small operation. That context changes how the final meeting is understood. Selena was not continuing contact out of simple trust or confusion. She was trying to recover documents from the person who still had control of them. The need was urgent, and the contact continued because the problem had not been resolved. This is where the family business becomes part of the tragedy. For years, the Quintanillas had protected Selena by keeping the operation tight and close to home. As her success grew, that protection began to depend on roles the family could no longer manage by themselves. Saldivar held one of those roles. She had real access, real responsibility, and far too little oversight for a business carrying that much pressure. The threat did not come from fame in some distant sense. It came from a weakness inside the way the business had grown. On the morning of March 31st, Selena went to the Days Inn in Corpus Christi to collect the missing documents. Saldivar was staying there. Selena's purpose was specific and painfully ordinary in retrospect. She was going to retrieve paperwork and close a problem that had been hanging over the business. Inside room 158, that errand became the last chapter of her life. Saldivar shot her with a .38 caliber revolver. Selena made it out of the room and ran toward the lobby. Motel employees later testified that she identified who had shot her and named the room number before collapsing. She was taken to Corpus Christi Memorial Hospital and pronounced dead that afternoon. She was 23 years old. Saldivar remained in a red pickup truck in the motel parking lot for about 9 hours while police negotiated. The standoff kept the crisis unfolding in public for the rest of the day. There was no clear break between the shooting and the aftermath. For the people watching it unfold, it all blurred into one long, painful scene. By then, the grief had already spilled into the city. Fans gathered outside Selena's home and outside the boutique. Broadcasters across Texas shifted tone and programming. What had happened was immediately understood as more than the death of a singer. For many Mexican-American families, for many women, for many young fans who had seen themselves in her, the loss felt personal in a way celebrity deaths do not always reach. It also felt unfinished because it was. The murder case moved to Houston because the publicity in Corpus Christi made an impartial local trial difficult. On October 23, 1995, a jury convicted Yolanda Saldivar of first-degree murder, rejecting the claim that the gun had fired by accident. She received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Her conviction held through later appeals. By then, Selena's career had entered the cruelest phase of all, the part where her plans continued without her. Dreaming of You was released in July 1995. It brought together the English-language songs she had been recording with Spanish-language hits and earlier material from her catalog. The album sold 331,000 copies in its first week and debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. That was the crossover she had been building toward. The proof arrived exactly as the strategy had always suggested it might. She simply was not there to watch it happen. The public memorials began almost immediately and never really stopped. Texas declared April 16th Selena Day. Corpus Christi later added Mirador de la Flor, the bronze waterfront memorial that turned mourning into geography. The Selena Museum opened in 1998. Her grave at Seaside Memorial Park became part of a route fans still travel, a path marked by flowers, photos, and the urge to stand in places that make the loss feel briefly tangible. The story kept widening with time. The 1997 film Selena carried her into another generation. In 2017, her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame drew a record crowd. In 2021, the film Selena entered the National Film Registry. In 2025, RIAA figures placed Dreaming of You at 62 times Latin Platinum and credited her catalog with 17 million certified units. That kind of longevity is not sentimental bookkeeping. It is a measurement of continued presence. And the legal story kept reopening too. In March 2025, the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles denied Saldivar's first bid for parole and set the next review for 2030. Each new review drags the timeline back into view, forcing old grief into the present tense again. That ongoing cycle helps explain why Selena never settled into ordinary nostalgia. She remained active in memory because the life was cut so short, because the work was strong enough to survive the cut, and because entire communities kept returning to her as a way of naming something larger than celebrity. Selena stood for talent, yes, but also for belonging, ambition, and recognition in a country that often lagged behind the people already living its future. She also learned the less glamorous skills that separate durable performers from brief sensations. She had to keep energy through exhaustion, recover after indifferent crowds, and return the next night ready to win over a different room. That kind of training leaves marks. It makes performance feel instinctive later, even when the instinct was built by repetition rather than magic. Her marriage added another layer to her life that often gets flattened into a single family conflict and then hurried past. Selena married Chris Perez, the guitarist in the band, in 1992. Abraham had opposed the relationship at first, worried about what romance inside the group might do to the work and to the discipline that had kept the whole enterprise moving. The marriage survived that early conflict, and the fact that it did says something about Selena's determination in her private life as well as her public one. She could be warm and accommodating, but she was not passive. The crossover plan also fit naturally into Selena's world. She had grown up listening to English-language pop and R&B right alongside the regional music that shaped her career, so an English album followed the logic of her own taste and background. People close to the project understood that clearly. To them, it was a chance to bring forward another part of the artist they already knew. The final months of her life carried unusual momentum. She was coming off a Grammy win, the success of Amor Prohibido, historic crowds, the boutique expansion, and ongoing work in the studio. That period cannot be understood without those milestones, because they show how much was building at once. Selena's career was moving forward on several fronts, and nearly all of them were gaining strength. Public mourning reflected that sense of interruption. More than 30,000 people viewed her body in Corpus Christi before burial. For many fans, the rituals that followed were not only about saying goodbye, they were about trying to absorb the scale of the break. The response looked like grief, and it was. It also looked like disbelief, because the career had been expanding so quickly that many people still felt they were in the middle of watching it happen. That is why later tributes have worked best when they preserve the specificity instead of sanding it down. The museum in Corpus Christi matters because it keeps her near the place that made her. The waterfront memorial matters because it ties memory to the city rather than to abstraction. Even the continued fan pilgrimages matter because they are not neutral tourism. They are acts of return. There is also a temptation in stories like this to frame betrayal as though it arrives cleanly, announced in advance. Real betrayal usually does not. It moves through ordinary routines. It wears the look of paperwork, scheduling, staffing, misplaced trust, unfinished errands. In Selena's case, that banality is part of what makes the ending so disturbing. She was not walking towards some grand cinematic confrontation. She was trying to resolve business problems created by someone who had been allowed too close. The afterlife of her career has sometimes been measured in numbers alone because numbers are easy to quote. First-week sales, certifications, crowd sizes, chart positions. Those details matter because they anchor the scale. But they do not fully explain why Selena still feels current. Plenty of artists post impressive numbers and then settle into history. Selena keeps reappearing because her story speaks to unfinished questions about language, belonging, ambition, family control, and what America does with artists it notices too late. That is also why younger artists keep naming her. They do not cite her only as a beloved singer from the past. They cite her as a pathfinder who made certain futures imaginable. Some inherited the commercial lane she helped open. Others inherited the symbolic one. Either way, the line runs forward from her, even when the surface style has changed. And then there is the simplest part, the one easy to overlook, because the tragedy looms so large. Selena's records still work. The voice still carries brightness, playfulness, discipline, flirtation, and command. The stage footage still makes sense to people who did not grow up with her. None of the memorial architecture would hold if the work itself had faded. It is not. Even now, her presence in popular culture does not feel archival. It feels lived in. New listeners find the records. Older fans pass them down, and each generation seems to meet the same performer, confident, magnetic, and impossible to reduce. There is a version of Selena's story that lives almost entirely in the language of loss. The tours that never happened, the records she never finished, the age she was, the years the world never got. That version is true, and it will always have power. But it is not the only truth available. She won the Grammy while she was alive. She drew the rodeo crowd while she was alive. She built the boutiques, shaped the image, and recorded the songs that opened the door while she was alive. She did not spend her career circling success and falling short of it. She arrived. The timeline simply ended before the wider culture fully caught up to the fact. That is why the legacy has lasted. Not because people are attached only to what might have been, but because the work itself held. It kept moving. It kept selling. It kept finding listeners who were not even born when she died. The grief lasted because the art did. Selena did not become important because she was taken too soon. She was taken too soon because she had already become important to millions of people, And the scale of that importance only became more obvious once the future was forced to proceed without her. What remains now is not a ghost story. It is a body of work, a public memory, and a place in American music that had to be made larger after she was gone. That may be the clearest measure of what she accomplished. The industry spent years deciding where to place her. The audience had already answered clearly, long before and without hesitation.